This is my 2004 Audi A4 Quattro with the 1.8T engine, and today we're going to be going over the simplest method to replacing the crankcase breather system on this engine. And the reason it's so specific to the AMB is it has a bit of a different layout to where all the hoses run and the connections and all that stuff, and it all sits under the intake manifold. But I'm going to show you how to do that without removing anything, so you won't have to drain your coolant, you won't have to take apart your fuel system. It's all pretty accessible once you remove the coolant reservoir. So I'll show you how to do that today. We're going to replace it with the 034Motorsports silicone hose kit because I'm sick and tired of dealing with vacuum problems and the factory plastic becoming brittle and breaking. So I've already replaced the elbow that sits under the intake manifold twice. Both times they've cracked. So I figured this is the next best option, and it seems tried and true on the forums. So I do better with seeing things happen. So I'm going to show you today how to do this because I've already done it 3 times now. So here we go. And as far as tools go, pretty simple. Just a pick for the electrical connectors and the factory hose clamps. You can use that to wedge in there and pry them off. And I have a ratchet with 2 sockets for hose clamps that I've replaced, a long needle nose pliers, and a flathead screwdriver. And these 2 are actually crucial for removing the retaining clip that holds this elbow in underneath the intake manifold. I'll show something on screen here to show you that. So if you've done any research on the crankcase ventilation system, you'll know that this is the most notorious part to go bad. And you can see here, over the 22 years of age, it's become very brittle and is actually cracked, which causes leaks underneath the intake manifold. So this is actually supposed to be on the front of this as well, and this is completely deteriorated. This is what the replacement part looks like, and it is basically the same brittle plastic they used as the OEM, and as you can tell, I've already split this one, and in a minute, you'll see I actually split the one that I replaced that's already in the car. So what 034 does is replaces this entire part, as you can see here, with silicone hose that is all one piece, because this is actually multiple sections. So this hose is its own thing, also made out of plastic on the OEM, and this also comes out to a few check valves, which get blocked off and replaced here. But here's the 034 kit, and I will show you how to install this today. And working on anything electrical related, I do like to remove the negative terminal in the battery, just so we don't have any problems. These cars are very sensitive, so better safe than sorry. I forgot, you do need a Phillips head screwdriver, at least to remove this screw or whatever yours is. And then you can go ahead and mess this thing out of the tabs, like so. There's a connector on the bottom, which you want to remove ever so gently and gracefully. And then you can sort of pivot this to the side, and then you have way more access to get under the intake manifold, at least from this direction. So in the intake manifold, we have an electrical connection and 2 hoses. So you should be able to just pinch this connection here. That comes off pretty easily. These hoses, this is where your pick comes in for the factory clamps. I've already loosened this one a little bit, but you can sort of wedge it in here and try and break these free. They're kind of a pain, honestly, and I would recommend everybody replaces them. There we go. After it's broken, you can go ahead and pull this hose off, like so. What a pain. Work this clamp off and replace it. Go ahead and take this one off, or at least loosen it. Much easier than factory clamps. Look at that. So that one comes off. You can see there's 2 electrical connections. There's one here, and there's also one over here. So the way it works is just 2 clips that press in, and it just slides off like that. Yeah, so this here pushes in. You can see it releases like that. So it's the same on the other connector as well. So you push it in and it comes off. So do the other one here. Same thing. Pretty simple. And don't worry about really losing place of these, because the wires, they'll naturally fall where the connector is supposed to go. So even if you move it out of the way a little bit, just for reference, if you do need it, the green plug is for the closest to the firewall, and the brown plug is closest to the throttle body. So there's one last hose, which is this guy right here. So we will go ahead and remove that. And once that clamp is removed, you can see the hose will slide off of the fitting from underneath the throttle body, and this whole assembly now is much looser and gives you more access. All right, on the back of the engine here, you can see for the AMB setup, there's a T that goes down to one of our hoses that we need to remove. So we'll start with removing the PCV valve, which is pretty simple as long as you remove the factory hose clamps. Loosen that up and loosen this guy up down here. It's helpful to have all this stuff loose, just because when you're fitting everything, it all goes together smoothly. One more clamp back here, and this is for the pipe that actually connects to the crankcase breather elbow. Now once that is all loose, you should be able to slide the PCV out of this T here, like so. There we go. And then you can separate the T off of this fitting back here. It's a little bit awkward to get to. Once that's loose, you should be able to kind of wiggle. Once that's loose, it comes off the fitting in the back here, and here's what the T looks like. But there we go, that's one part that's gonna get replaced. So then you wanna get this last crankcase breather hose off. It's a little bit tricky with this clamp here. You're not gonna need this pipe anymore. So take that off, and now is the fun part. Okay, now if you're over at the side where we just removed everything and you look underneath here, you'll see right there is that elbow I was talking about. And you can see how mine is actually split right there. That's all gonna get replaced. So what we're going after is the metal retaining clip that holds that on right there. So the best way I found to do this is actually to work from above, and you can kind of get your hand in on the side with your long needle nose pliers, and you're able to actually grab a hold of it. And you can see you can actually get your needle nose in there in a way, and if you finesse it just enough, you can create a gap to get a long screwdriver in there. It's best to feed a screwdriver, get it ready, and then you can sneak the needle nose in there again, grab hold of it, create a little space, just enough for the screwdriver to get in there, and you kind of just work it back and forth. It's kind of a pain, not gonna lie. Yeah, definitely the worst part of this, for sure. And there you go. So you'll feel it, it'll release, and then you kind of just get it the rest of the way with your hand. And here's that clip. Like I said, this is probably the worst part of it, just having limited access with the intake manifold on, but it's definitely doable. Yeah, as you can see there, mine is already separated itself. But you should be able to work your hand in here again and wiggle it back and forth. If yours is deteriorated and falling apart, I would highly recommend having something to catch the debris from falling in. And then you go ahead and retrieve the O-ring. Make sure you don't leave that in there. What I do in the meantime is just stick a rag over top, down in it a little bit, just to make sure that no dust and debris or anything gets in there, because that'd be very bad. So for the rest of these hoses, these two hoses that are now remaining in here with the check valves and everything, it's really a game of just working the hoses through everything else very carefully. Of course, with the elbow off, it's much easier because it will just disintegrate. And then kind of work it out. I'm not too worried about this because we are replacing this whole thing. And there we go. There's the entire assembly. There's all the check valves. This is all very specific to the late AMB model, just because of the way this hose is routed. On other models, it's a solid metal pipe that has a little bit of a 90 degree at the bottom. But this whole thing gets replaced with the silicone hose assembly. So I'll show you that now. So here's your proof that replacing things with the OEM equivalent is not always the best solution. So both elbows, these are brand new, cracked in about the same spot. So this one was installed and ran on the car for about, 2 miles. This one didn't make it out of the driveway. So we're going to be replacing all this garbage with silicone hoses. And I can show you here if we compare this to the old factory stuff, and there's the new from 034Motorsports. So this part is a little bit longer, as you can see, but should all fit together nicely considering that even this is getting replaced with this silicone. So there's the replacement for that as well. This that I thought replaced this guy actually bypasses that and replaces this section down here. And this goes to the intake manifold. So we're going to figure out now how all of this works with the plug, because as you can see, there's a check valve here, or 2 check valves here actually, and there's none on the new one. Seems to simplify things because check valves can go bad, and it's going to replace it with this billet one, which is pretty nice. And also it looks like this is a plug for it. So we're going to go ahead and figure out how all this works, because there's no instructions here. Okay, there's the 034 billet check valve, looks like. Looks like that goes in like so. Go ahead and slide this all the way in, I'm guessing. Looks about good to me. All right,
Give it a little extra snug so that there's no leaks. Okay, yeah, that's definitely good. Not going anywhere. Just inspect around everything to make sure. Give it a good. So then we got this little guy here. Basically imagine how it's going to sit in the car and then orient it to where you think the connection goes. Slide a little hose clamp deal on there. All right. So you don't have to go crazy with the clamp, but you do want to make sure that it's snug. So there's our simplified 034 assembly. As you can see now, compared to the old one, it removes this second crankcase hose that runs up the back. So I am guessing that these caps will go where the old connections were. And for the hose clamps, you have a few left. This one goes here. You can let that kind of be loose on there. And then these three that are left goes with this part here. So again, try and position these to where the clamp will be accessible from within the car. So now we have both of our assemblies ready to go back in the car, along with our caps. So let's do this. So now putting everything back together is basically the reverse process of taking it all apart. So now that we have our assembly, we are basically going to finesse it back up and through. And now that we don't have an extra hose, it actually should be quite a bit easier to see what's going on. And it takes a little bit of working with it. So much easier with silicone hoses as well because it all flexes. Okay, that took a little bit more time to route than I thought, but the hose has to go up and around instead of up and through right here where the old hose went. It's got to go up and around the coolant pipe. Otherwise, it's going to stick way too far up and it's going to stick way up over here when, as you can see right now, as soon as I'm ready to connect everything, it's going to meet up perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and get that retainer clip back in down there, the fun one. You can see we got the new one in there. And the hose will come up right here and we'll connect to the bottom inlet or outlet, whatever one that is, on the intake. So I left everything kind of loose so that I can connect it all and make sure it fits. But with the silicone hoses, there's a little bit of play and everything, which is nice. And it should be all ready to go. All right, we got everything all tightened up now. All the hose clamps for everything, all tight. Everything is reconnected, all the sensors, electrical connectors. I figured out this cap here was most likely for this little nub on the end of the crankcase. So we're gonna see how that holds up. I might need to put a clamp on it or something. I don't know if it has positive pressure. I think it does. It might blow off, but we will address that if time comes. So now all we have to do is just reconnect the battery, start her up. Okay, so we did have an engine light on. I forget the codes exactly. I'll put them on screen now for what I was getting as far as codes go. One thing I like to do too with this car is, especially when you have the battery disconnected, is just reconnect the battery, turn the key onto accessories and let it do its thing for the throttle body. You can kind of hear it. It usually takes like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Here we go. It all seems to be idling nice now. It used to be a very bad misfire, but checked all the spark plugs. I just redid my coil packs. And if you are experiencing any rough idling issues or misfires, I would highly recommend checking your PCV system. This whole assembly here is also known to go bad. So definitely check on that. But also the crankcase breather system that we just replaced is a very high culprit. So there we go.